Hi, this is Mrs. Clark, and welcome to my video where we're going to be looking at midpoints. So today we're going to look at a segment on a graph, determine the midpoint of the segment, and then we're going to, from there, develop the formula. So we're going to look at it in a visual way, and then from there develop a formula that we can use so that no matter what, whether we have a graph or not, we can calculate the midpoint. So first thing to do is we're going to graph these 2 points, this 6, 4 and -2, -6. So 6, 4, I'm going to go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll be right here. And -2, -6, I'm going to go to the left 2, and then down 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be right here. And then we're going to connect these two together. So I'm going to grab my ruler. I'm going to make a segment connecting the two. And our ultimate goal is going to be to try to find the middle point on this segment. So if you see the word midpoint, that's talking about the point in the middle. So on this segment, however long it is, we want the one that's right in the middle, so halfway. So we're going to try to find that just by looking at the graph and reasoning where it should be, and then we're going to look at developing a formula from that. So just like when we did the distance formula, we had listed x1 and y1 as our first point and x2, y2 as our second point. I'm going to do that again here so we can know which one we're talking about, whether we're talking about the first x, the second x, the first y, the second y. Okay. So then we're going to look for the middle of this segment. And the way we're going to think about it is if we're on the graph, there are two directions on the graph. We have up and down and we have left to right. We're going to need to locate the middle of both of those to find the midpoint. So a midpoint is the point that's in the middle both for the x and the y. So first I'm going to look at the x. So if I look at the x, I'm going to actually draw this segment going to the right like we have done in the past when we looked at slope, when we looked at Pythagorean theorem. And I want to know how long is this line, because I need to find the middle in the x direction, and this is basically going from -2 to 6, which are my two x's. This is the segment that's showing the horizontal distance. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes wide. So if I want the middle, I know it's going to be 4 and 4. So that spot is going to be right here. If I'm thinking of where that is going to be, the middle side to side is right here. I want to do the same thing looking in the up and down direction. So if I do the same idea and I draw this vertical line segment, I want to find the middle of that, and it is, let's see how long it is. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 boxes, which means the middle is going to be 5 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the other side. So that's the middle that way. So if I find the middle of both at the same time, that should lead me to a point. If I'm looking at the middle going vertically, it's going to be in this line. If I look at the middle horizontally, I'm here. And where they meet up is this point right here, which is the middle of the segment. Now, what is this point exactly? This point is 2, because it goes 1, 2 to the right. So 2. And then it goes only down 1, so it's -1. So 2, -1 is our midpoint. Now, if I didn't have a graph and I didn't want to do this procedure every single time, I would want a way to figure that out without having to draw a triangle and find the middle and find the middle and see where they intersect. So there's got to be a combination or a formula with how the x's that I have develop this x of a 2, and the y's that I have develop this y of a negative 1. So that's what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to start with the x's since that's what we started with before. And we're going to look at our two x's and we're going to see if we can come up with how the two numbers create the x coordinate of our midpoint. So one of the x's is negative 2 and the other x is 6. How could negative 2 and 6, how could I do some math with them and have them come out to be 2? Well, if I'm thinking I'm in the middle, then my value here for x, 2, should be in the middle of these two. Like if I think about it on a number line, let me grab a piece of paper real quick. I'm going to make a quick number line. Negative 2 to 6. Oops. All right. How do I find the middle from here to here? Well, the middle is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the middle. Now, mathematically, a middle is an average. If I take this number and average it with this number, I should be getting the middle, which is this number. So what is an average? An average is the mean. We calculated a mean in our other unit, so we've done that before. So what that means is I have to take this negative 2 and this 6, I have to add them up, because that's what we do when we find the mean, and divide by how many there are, and there are 2 of them, so I'm going to divide by 2. If I do that, I have negative 2 plus 6, which is 4, divided by 2. If I do 4 divided by 2, I get 2. So the x coordinate of my midpoint is 2. How did I find that? What did I do? I took my x1, which, actually I took my x2, which was negative 2, and I took my x1, which was 6, and I added them up. And I'm going to write it in a different order here. It doesn't matter because when I add, I can add either way. But I took my x's, my x1 and my x2, and I added them. And then once I had them added, I divided them by 2. And that's how I got this. So here's part of our formula. To get the x part of the coordinate, this 2 that I got here, I have to average my x's. I have to find the mean. I have to add them up and divide by 2. So add them up, we get 4, divide by 2, we get 2. So this is our x coordinate of our midpoint. I wonder if the same thing would work for y. Let's check that out. Let me actually label this here before we go any further. X coordinate of the midpoint. So if I want to try to find the y coordinate of the midpoint, let's see if we can do it the same way. I'm going to look at the y values that we have here, 4 and negative 6. If I add them up and divide by 2, do I get this y coordinate we have over here? Well, 4 plus negative 6 is negative 2. Negative 2 divided by positive 2 is negative 1. So this is our y coordinate of our midpoint. How did I get that? I took my y1 and added it to my y2 and divided by 2. So to get the y coordinate, we added our y's and divided by 2, took the average of the y's, and we got negative 1. To get our x coordinate, we took the average of the x's, divided by 2, got our 2. So my midpoint is just both of those things put together as an ordered pair, 2 comma negative 1. So let's write a quick definition right here, and we'll write the formula as a whole down here as well. So a midpoint is the average distance or halfway between 2 points. A midpoint is the average distance or halfway between 2 points. So we found that by averaging the x's and averaging the y's, or taking the mean of the x's and the mean of the y's. So if I was asked for the midpoint, our final answer is this 2, -1. So let's label that also. Midpoint. The way we got that was the first part of our coordinate came from this. The second part of our coordinate came from this. So if I look at the coordinate as a whole, one giant ordered pair or coordinate, the x part comes from this. So I'm going to write this little x1 plus x2 divided by 2 here, because that's how I get this first number in my ordered pair. And the y part of the coordinate came from this, so I'm going to write this in here. And so when I calculate this, I get one number. When I calculate this, I get one number, and then that's my answer. So my final answer is whatever I get as an answer from this, comma, whatever I get as an answer from this. So I write it as an ordered pair. So let's do the 2 examples at the bottom using this formula. So if we're looking at the formula and we're trying to get these 2 examples done, I've got 2 points. I want to find the midpoint between these 2 points, but I don't want to make a graph. I don't want to waste my time making a graph. I want to just use this formula. So I'm going to label my points x1 and y1, x2 and y2. So that I can fill them in. I'm going to start with my ordered pair. I'm going to make them kind of big so I can do my work kind of inside them. And I'll make them smaller as I go. But I need to do x1 plus x2. So I need -8 plus 2. And divide that by 2. And then that's going to give me my x. For my y, I'm going to do 5 plus -9. Divide that by 2. And that's going to give me my y. So in your calculator, grab your calculator if you haven't. All right, we're going to do -8 plus 2. I get -6, so this will be -6 over 2. The other side I'm going to do 5 plus -9, -4, so this is -4 over 2. But I don't have my midpoint yet until I divide them both by 2. So if I do -6 divided by 2, I get -3. So my x-coordinate is -3, comma, my y-coordinate, -4 divided by 2, -2. So the midpoint is -3, comma, -2. So notice that I did them individually. I set this one up, I set this one up. I calculated the numerator, I calculated the numerator. I did the division, I did the division. If you want to write yourself a reminder, you can. So maybe a note here to remind yourself that this means to divide. That way you remember what you're putting in the calculator. You do have to do them separately. Look, if I do -2 plus 8 divided by 2 all in my calculator, sorry, -8 plus 2 divided by 2 in the calculator, you'll notice if you're looking, sorry, there's a glare. If you're looking, it comes out as -7, not -3. I need to do it one step at a time. Otherwise, the calculator doesn't use the right order of operations. So -8 plus 2 first, hit enter, then divide by 2 to get your -3. So go ahead and pause the video, try this one. It has decimals in it. It's really the same thing. The numbers are just not as nice. Try it, unpause, come back and check your work. Alright, here's how you should have set it up. So check to see if you have that correctly. If so, pause it and calculate it out. So here's what you get when you calculate it out one piece at a time. So we get negative 1.5 when I add the numerator. When I divide it by 5, I get negative 0.75. Over here I get 16.2 when I add the numerators. When I divide it by 2, I get 8.1. So you can see the midpoint is not a perfect whole number point. If I had to graph this, it would be really hard because it's not whole numbers. But I can use the formula to calculate it if it's whole numbers or not. Either way, I'm going to be able to do it. So there you go. Glue this in your notebook. Let me know what questions you have and go ahead and do some practice. Thanks for watching.